This is the closest point to the moon. It's right here on planet Earth. And it's not Mount Everest.
You've seen the Statue of Liberty in New York, heard Mount Everest is closest to space, and believed the Great Wall can be seen from orbit. But what if none of that is true?
Southeastern Morocco's Sahara Desert, known for its frequent drought, is experiencing floods.
From invisible landmarks to shifting equators and fake mountain ranges, the world map is lying to you more than you think.
Is Greenland really that big?
Stay with us as we unravel the twisted truths in 20 world geography facts that are fake, but you believe them. Moon's true neighbor. You've probably heard it a million times. Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world. But what if I told you it's not the closest point on Earth to the moon? Sounds like nonsense, but it's true. That crown actually goes to Ecuador's Mount Chimborazo. Here's why. Everest wins when we measure from sea level. But Earth isn't a perfect sphere. It's more like a slightly squished ball, wider at the equator. Because of that bulge, places along the equator are naturally closer to space. And guess where Chimborazo is? Yep, almost right on the equator. So even though its peak is more than 8,000 feet shorter than Everest, it still sticks out farther from Earth's core. That means it ends up about 6,800 feet closer to the moon than Everest's summit. Kind of flips the whole tallest mountain narrative, right? All this time we've been hyping Everest, and Chimborazo's just been chilling there, quietly holding the real high ground. So why doesn't it get the same fame? Probably because highest above sea level just sounds more dramatic on a tourism poster. But now you know, the real Sky King is in Ecuador. Map size myth. Let's talk about one of the most sneaky, long-running geography myths out there. The idea that the world map you saw in school shows the world the way it really is. Spoiler, it doesn't. Most of us grew up looking at the Mercator projection, a map that massively distorts the size of countries, especially the ones near the equator. Greenland, for example, looks like it could go toe-to-toe with Africa. But in real life, Africa is about 14 times larger. 14. Let that sink in. The Mercator map wasn't made to be fair or accurate. It was built for 16th century sailors trying to navigate oceans. It's great for straight-line travel, but it blows up the size of land near the poles and shrinks places near the equator. That means Europe and North America get exaggerated, while South America and Africa get minimized. But here's the bigger truth. Maps aren't just geography, they're politics. They shape how we see power, importance, and who's at the center of the world. That's why some countries use other projections like the Gaull-Peters or center the map on themselves, like China or Australia does. So the next time you're looking at a map, don't just ask, where is that? Ask, who made this? And what were they trying to say? Desert fable busted. You ever hear someone say the Sahara is just one massive sandbox? Turns out they were just talking nonsense. One of the most common geography myths we've been fed is that the Sahara Desert is wall-to-wall sand dunes. But here's the real deal. Only about 20% of it is actually covered in sand. Wild, right? The rest? It's a whole mix of rocky plateaus, gravel plains, dry valleys, and even mountain ranges. We're talking landscapes that look more like Mars than a beach. So, if you were expecting endless golden dunes like in the movies, that's just Hollywood doing its thing again. Some of the Sahara's most dramatic features aren't even made of sand. There are ancient volcanic formations, giant salt flats, and rugged rock landscapes that go on for miles. And get this, the desert's size is no joke. It stretches across 11 countries and spans an area bigger than the US. It's the largest hot desert on Earth, but it's way more than just a giant sandbox. So how did this whole all sand rumor get so big? Blame it on pop culture, travel brochures, and maybe even a few sketchy textbooks. But now, you know better. Liberty location twist. All right, it's a time to spill the tea on one of the biggest geography mix-ups out there. We all grew up thinking the Statue of Liberty is straight up chillin' in New York, right? Well, brace yourself. That's only kind of true. So, Lady Liberty sits on Liberty Island, which is federally owned. Sure, but it's actually smack dab in New Jersey's waters. Honestly, that's true. The waters surrounding the island fall under Jersey's jurisdiction, not New York's. Mind blown? So how'd this whole confusion even start? Well, the statue was a gift from France to the United States, not just New York. And since you gotta catch the ferry from Battery Park in Manhattan to get there, most folks just assumed she belonged to NYC. It's been branded that way forever. Postcards, TV shows, tourist guides, you name it. But legally speaking, New Jersey holds the title to the surrounding waters, and Liberty Island is right there in the mix. In fact, there was even a Supreme Court ruling back in the day that settled this whole geography beef between the two states. For real, it's wild how geography facts we thought were solid end up being straight up shaky when you look closer. UK versus England truth. It's time to kill off one of the biggest geography myths people still believe. How many times have you heard someone say England when they really mean the entire United Kingdom? Yeah, that's straight up wrong. And honestly, kinda disrespectful to the other nations in the mix. So here's the lowdown. England is just one part of the UK. The full squad includes England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. They all form the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That's the government name. Now, England might get the most clout 'cause of London, the royal fam, and the media spotlight, but it's not the whole picture. Each country has its own vibe, identity, and even separate governments for certain things. So calling the UK England is like calling all of America California. Yeah, nah. This mix-up happens a lot, especially with tourists or folks not from the region. But even some people who live in the UK trip up on this. It's wild. And just to really cook your brain, Great Britain is only the island that holds England, Scotland, and Wales. Northern Ireland? That's across the Irish Sea, so don't get it twisted. Triple capital shock. Here's a geography fact that trips up a lot of people. Cape Town is not the only capital of South Africa. For real, it's just 1/3 of the setup. South Africa's out here flexing with not one, not two, but 3 official capital cities. Wild, right? So here's how it breaks down. Cape Town handles the legislative biz. This is where Parliament does its thing. Then you've got Pretoria, holding it down as the executive capital, where the president and all the top-level government offices are posted up. And don't sleep on Bloemfontein. That's the judicial capital, home to the country's top courts. Why 3 capitals, though? Well, it's all about balance. After uniting different regions back in the day, South Africa chose this setup to spread political power across the country instead of stacking everything in one place. Kinda smart when you think about it. But yeah, Cape Town gets most of the shine because of its dope views, tourism hype, and those iconic parliament buildings. So it's no surprise people think it runs the whole show, but the real story's way deeper than that. River flow fable. Okay, let's settle this once and for all. Rivers do not always flow south. That's a straight up myth, and it's time we call it out. Rivers don't follow a compass, they follow gravity. That means they flow from high ground to low ground, not just south. So yeah, rivers can, and do, flow in pretty much any direction. North, east, west, even in zigzags if the land says so. Need proof? Look at the Nile River. It flows north from Central Africa all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. It's the longest river in the world, and it's been running against the grain of this myth for thousands of years. The reason people think rivers only flow south? Probably because we're used to looking at maps with north on top. So when we see rivers going down the page, we just assume that's south. But that's just us getting played by the map layout, not the science. There are a bunch of rivers around the world that flow north or in other directions. The Monongahela in the US flows north too. So do parts of the Ob, Lena, and Red Rivers. It all depends on elevation, not direction. Antarctic time truth. Here's a cold, hard fact that'll flip your brain a bit. Antarctica does have time zones. Yep, for real. A lot of folks think the icy continent runs on one big frozen clock, or no time zone at all. But that's just not how it works. Even though Antarctica sits at the bottom of the world, where every line of longitude technically meets, time there isn't just frozen in limbo. Instead, the continent is divided into multiple time zones, mostly based on the countries running research stations. So, for example, the US bases might use New Zealand time, since that's their supply hub. Russian stations follow Moscow time. Chilean bases? You guessed it, they're rolling with Chile's time zone. It's all about who's running the show in that area. Now, there's no official Antarctica-wide time zone, and yeah, it gets a little funky during those 24-hour days and nights. So some stations just pick a zone that keeps things practical for daily routines and communication with their home country. So why do people believe the no time zones thing? Probably because the sun doesn't rise or set normally down there, which messes with our usual sense of time. But trust, it's not timeless down there. It's just complicated. The real transcontinental crew. Time to smack down a geography myth that's been way too loud for way too long. You've probably heard that only Russia and Turkey are transcontinental countries. But here's the truth. They're not alone in that club. Yeah, Russia and Turkey definitely span more than one continent, but so do a few other underrated players. Can't ignore these underrated contenders. Kazakhstan? Part of it stretches into Europe, even though most of it sits in Central Asia. Azerbaijan? Same deal. It's got land in both Europe and Asia, especially across the Caucasus Mountains. And Egypt? People sleep on this one, but the Sinai Peninsula is straight up in Asia, while the rest of the country's chillin' in Africa. So no, Russia and Turkey aren't the only ones rocking that two continents, one nation flex. There's actually a handful of countries doing the same thing, just without all the spotlight. This myth sticks around mostly because Russia and Turkey are the biggest and loudest examples. But when you dig into the maps and borders, you'll see the world's a lot more connected and complicated than it seems. Australia's not alone. Here's a reality check. Australia isn't the one and only on its continent like you might have heard. Yeah, we know it's the one everyone thinks of, but there's more to the neighborhood than just kangaroos and koalas. Here's what's really going on. The continent often called Australia is actually part of a larger region known as Oceania, and the continental shelf it's sitting on includes other countries too. Papua New Guinea shares the same landmass with Australia, literally connected by the Sahul Shelf. Parts of Indonesia, like West Papua, also sit on that same continental plate. So while Australia is the biggest and most recognizable country in the region, it's not rolling solo. It just overshadows the others because of its size, economy, and global presence. And honestly, that's where the confusion starts. Most maps lump the continent and the country together under the same name. But geographically, it's a shared space, not a private island. World geography facts that are fake might just make you question every map you've ever seen. That blood red warning over West Africa? It's tied to one of the biggest misconceptions in modern geography. Are textbook maps actually manipulating the truth? And if so, what else have we been lied to about? Drop your thoughts below. Equator heat falsehood. Now, we're talking serious heat now. No exaggeration. You've probably been told the equator is the hottest place on Earth, right? Makes sense since it gets direct sunlight year-round. But that's actually not true. The real heat champs? Subtropical deserts. We're talking spots like the Lut Desert in Iran and Death Valley in California. These places have recorded surface temps that are absolutely next level. The Lut Desert once hit a wild 159.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that's fire. So why isn't the equator claiming the crown? It's all about how the land handles the heat. The equator's got thick rainforests and cloud cover that help regulate the temp. It's hot, no doubt, but not that bone-dry, sun-blasted sky is on fire kind of hot. Subtropical deserts, on the other hand, get clear skies, dry air, and not much vegetation. Basically the perfect combo for cooking the surface like a cast iron skillet. This myth sticks because people associate the equator with heat and humidity. And while it's warm year-round, it's not where the Earth's thermometer maxes out. While you can't see. Let's call out one of the most hyped-up geography myths people still believe. The idea that the Great Wall of China is visible from space with the naked eye. Sounds cool, but nope. That one's straight-up fiction. Yeah, the wall is massive, thousands of miles long, but it's also pretty narrow and built from natural materials like stone and earth. From way up in space, it blends in with the landscape like camouflage. Astronauts have been saying it for years. Unless you've got help, like a zoom lens or perfect lighting, you're not spotting the wall from orbit. This myth's been floating around since forever. Some even claimed it was the only man-made structure visible from space. But truth is, stuff like highways, cities, and even airport runways stand out way more than the Great Wall. They contrast more with their surroundings and are easier to pick out from space. It's a dope story for sure. But in real life, the Great Wall's just not that bold from above. Africa misunderstood. Have you ever heard someone say Africa is a country, like it's just one big place with one vibe, one people, one flag? Yeah, big yikes. That's one of the most common geography flops out there, and for real, it's wild how many folks still think that. Africa is not a country. It's a whole continent, and a massive one at that. We're talking 54 recognized countries, each with their own borders, governments, languages, and seriously deep cultures. It's got everything from Egypt's ancient pyramids to South Africa's modern cities, and from Nigeria's booming film scene to Ethiopia's historical highlands. It's not one size fits all. It's rich, it's diverse, it's poppin'. So how did this whole Africa is a country myth even blow up in the first place? A lot of it comes down to how Africa's been talked about in media and school books, like it's some single storyline of poverty or safaris. That kind of vibe ignores the massive range of experiences and traditions found across the continent. We're talking over 2,000 languages, hundreds of ethnic groups, and a whole lot of history that predates most modern civilizations. Think about it. Would anyone ever say Europe is a country? Nope. So why is Africa always lumped together like that? Africa's not just one story, and definitely not one country. It's time we stop sleeping on its complexity. The Phantom Peaks. Well, this one's straight up mind-blowing. Ever heard of the Mountains of Kong? Turns out they were the biggest cartographic cap of the 19th century. No joke, these mountains never even existed, but for nearly 100 years they were chilling on world maps like they were the real deal. So here's the tea. Back in the early 1800s, a British explorer named Mungo Park was trekking through West Africa, mostly following the Niger River. Later on, some mapmakers, trying to fill in the blanks, invented a mountain range called the Mountains of Kong, stretching across West Africa from Guinea all the way to Nigeria. They slapped it on maps and boom, everyone just rolled with it like it was gospel. For decades, this fake mountain range showed up in atlases, textbooks, and even government charts. Folks thought it was a major geological feature. But as explorers and geographers finally started digging into the area, they were like, where are the mountains at? Turns out there were no massive peaks, just imagination and guesswork. The Mountains of Kong got exposed as pure fiction and eventually got erased from maps. But not before fooling a ton of people and shaping how the world saw Africa. Kinda makes you wonder, how many other facts are we still blindly trusting today? So yeah, the Mountains of Kong? Total ghost story on a map. But hey, it makes for a fire reminder to always double-check your facts. Not so round Earth. A lot of people still think Earth is a perfect sphere, smooth, round, and evenly shaped like a marble floating through space. It's a clean image, sure, but it's just not how our planet actually looks. The real Earth is a little more lumpy. Technically, our planet is called an oblate spheroid. That means it's slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. Imagine a basketball that's been gently squished from the top and bottom. That's basically Earth's shape. The reason? Rotation. Earth spins super fast, over 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. That spinning creates outward force, pushing the middle out while leaving the poles a bit compressed. This effect has been known for centuries and backed by modern tools like satellites, laser measurements, and GPS systems. But it doesn't stop there. The surface isn't even consistently smooth. Mountains, ocean trenches, and shifting tectonic plates add all kinds of natural dents and bulges. So when we say Earth has curves, we mean it literally. Next time someone drops the perfectly round Earth line, you'll know better. Earth's not a flawless sphere. It's got character, it's got shape, and it's doing its own thing. Imperfect? Sure. But that just makes it even more interesting. Meridian myth busted. Okay, clear something up. The prime meridian doesn't just chill in Greenwich and call it a day. Yeah, Greenwich, England is where it starts, but that line runs way deeper than just the UK. The prime meridian is basically Earth's 0-degree longitude line, the starting point for measuring time and global position. And while the Royal Observatory in Greenwich is the symbolic home of it, the line itself stretches all the way from the North Pole down to the South Pole. That means it slices through a whole lineup of countries, including France, Spain, Algeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, Togo, and Ghana. So yeah, Greenwich got the fame, but it ain't the only place on the line. The rest of the world's just kinda left out of the spotlight. It's like giving credit to the frontman of a band and ignoring the rest of the crew who make the music happen. And get this, modern GPS doesn't even line up exactly with the old-school prime meridian at Greenwich. Satellite tech has shifted it a few hundred feet east. So technically, if you're standing at the line marked in Greenwich today, you're not even on the real 0-degree line anymore. Wild, right? The next time someone ties the prime meridian to just Greenwich, go ahead and set the record straight. It's not just their line, it's everybody's. Amazon River facts. You've probably heard someone say, the Amazon is the biggest river in the world. Sounds solid, like one of those geography facts no one questions. But here's the twist. Biggest depends on what you're measuring. If we're talking volume, the Amazon's got that title locked down. No river on Earth comes close. It dumps more water into the Atlantic than the next 7 largest rivers combined. That's not just big, that's legendary. The Amazon moves so much water, it literally changes ocean salinity near the coast. It's that powerful. But if we're talking length, that's where things start to ripple. For a long time, the Nile was considered the longest river in the world. Then researchers came along with fresh data claiming the Amazon might actually stretch farther, if you count a certain stream in the Andes as its true source. Some experts say yes, others push back. It's still debated in scientific circles. So yeah, the Amazon is undisputed when it comes to flow. But calling it the biggest overall? That's kind of a vague flex. Next time someone drops that fact, hit them with biggest by volume or length. Because like a lot of things in geography, the truth depends on where you draw the line. Shifting equator truth. Okay, this one's kind of wild. The equator isn't locked in place like most of us were taught. That bold middle line you see on globes and maps? Yeah, it actually moves over time. The equator is supposed to be 0 degrees latitude, right? The dividing line between the northern and southern hemispheres. But thanks to things like tectonic shifts and the Earth's wobble, it doesn't stay perfectly still. It can shift by a few centimeters here and there, kind of like Earth doing a little side shuffle. This happens because our planet isn't a perfect, solid rock, It's got moving plates and spinning motion that can mess with the balance. Even changes in sea levels and melting ice can affect how Earth spins, which means the equator adjusts to keep up. Now don't worry, it's not drifting miles overnight or anything. But yeah, scientists have to track the equator's tiny movements using satellite data and super precise tech. For stuff like climate models, GPS, and flight paths, even small shifts can make a big difference. Yeah, maps show the equator, but it's not locked in place. Earth's always doing its thing. Shifting, spinning, changing. Kinda crazy, huh? Even the middle of the world won't sit still. Wall of myths. Here's one of the biggest myths still floating around. That border walls actually stop migration. Sounds simple, right? Build a wall, problem solved? Yeah, not even close. Take the US-Mexico border wall, for example. It's massive, expensive, and politically hyped, but studies show it's not nearly as effective as people think. Why? Because migration isn't just about crossing a line. It's about economic struggles, violence, climate disasters, and family ties. A wall doesn't erase those reasons. It just makes the journey more dangerous. Research shows that people still find ways around, under, and even through these barriers. Smuggling routes adapt, and migrants take riskier paths, often through deserts or remote areas, leading to way more injuries and deaths. And guess what? Even with all that steel and concrete, undocumented entries keep happening. Walls slow people down, but they rarely stop them. On top of that, these walls mess with trade, wildlife migration, and diplomatic vibes with neighboring countries. They cost billions, but they don't fix the root problems. It's like slapping a band-aid on a busted pipe. It might look good for a second, but the pressure's still building underneath. So yeah, border walls make headlines, but they don't really solve the migration puzzle. That takes policies, cooperation, and actually addressing the reasons people move in the first place. Kinda makes you think, are we investing in real solutions or just building symbols? Expansion isn't destiny. So here's one that gets tossed around a lot, that Russia's always gonna expand, no matter what. Like it's just wired into their DNA or something. We've gotta slow that narrative down. It doesn't tell the whole story. Yeah, historically, Russia's had moments of aggressive expansion, Tsarist conquests, Soviet takeovers, recent moves in Ukraine, no doubt. But acting like that's just their default setting ignores the bigger picture. The idea that Russia's destined to expand is more of a myth than a fact. See, foreign policy ain't just vibes. It's strategy, economics, and internal pressures. Russia, like any other country, has to juggle global backlash, sanctions, financial strain, and public opinion. Not every leader wakes up thinking, whose land can I grab today? A lot of Russia's moves are tied to security fears, nationalism, and maintaining influence in regions it sees as its backyard. But there are also plenty of moments in modern history where Russia chose diplomacy or even scaled back its global footprint. And not forget, the current Russian system is heavily shaped by specific leadership, not some ancient, unstoppable force. If leadership changes, policies shift. Expansionism isn't guaranteed. It's a choice, not a fate. So yeah, Russia's story is complicated. Labeling it as inevitably expansionist just oversimplifies a situation that's layered with politics, history, and real-world consequences. How much of what we think we know about countries is just leftover narratives no one's questioned? And that's a wrap. So how many fooled you? And what else are we still getting wrong? Hit like, smash subscribe, and turn on that bell.